Welcome back to another episode of the Healthy with Heartland podcast. My name is Justin Freistadt. I am your host. Also joined with your favorite creative directors and co-hosts, Simon and Shannon.
Hey. Good morning.
How are things going, guys?
Things are going good. Excited to be here.
Absolutely.
It's Thursday. Tomorrow's Friday.
Well, the bigger question is, how are things going with you, Justin?
Oh, yeah. What day are we on today? I say we. What day are you on today?
We're
all on
it.
46. I do have a good story in a little bit, if we have time, about how I literally almost failed 75 hard in a weird way, not the way you would think.
Like on accident?
Yeah, but the easiest part. But we'll come back to that. So we have a very special guest today. Before we give her the proper introduction she deserves, let's just get some of those announcements out of the way. So take it away, Shannon.
All right. Welcome back, Heartland family. A couple quick announcements here for you. If you're ready to restock from home without the hassle, February reorder special, you get 2 packs of bacon absolutely free with your reorder and a little something sweet. So a raspberry and vanilla swirl petite cheesecake for 2. Super, super delicious. So make sure to schedule your reorder so you can take advantage of that between now and the end of February. We also have a new page that's been added to the Heartland website. So if you want to check out housewares and health products, you can look at some of those. And if you have a reorder coming up soon and you want to take advantage of that reorder special, you can maybe also check out some of our awesome products as well. And then if you're a member of our foodie group, I'm sure you've seen our advertisements about the top tier mastermind. We have another We have another meeting coming up this Monday at 8 p.m. So you definitely won't want to miss that. It's going to be meeting number 4. So make sure to join in that community. We have links posted and pinned to the top of the group. So if you want to get in on that, make sure to fill it out so you can get that Zoom link and join us on Monday. And guys, with that, I think we can get into the podcast.
All right, so it's time to introduce our guest today. This is one of the Heartland family's own, Kristen Ballard. She is a life coach, personal coach, and the host of a very successful podcast called the Activate Podcast. So definitely follow her on all your favorite social media platforms and the podcast. Welcome to the show, Kristen Ballard. How are you?
Thank you. I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, this is great. So we've got lots of things to talk about, but let's get started with just your story and background.
Yeah, well, I grew up in the Midwest, home of corn-fed beef. So I grew up in Iowa, and just small family, small little town. Gosh, maybe 1,000 people in my town growing up. Ended up in Virginia, Northern Virginia, around the time I turned 30. And it was a whole new life moving out here. So really hadn't really discovered what life had in store for me until I came out here and thought my dreams in life were just to be a mom and a wife. And, I kind of failed at that really early on. I was divorced when I was 23 and I had 2 little babies to take care of. And I really feel like my life kind of started after 30.
Wow.
Phases, right? That's kind of how life is.
Definitely. Yes. Very not the way I would have expected things to happen, but I'm very blessed and grateful that they happened the way they did, because I feel like I wouldn't be where I am today without all of that.
Wow, for sure. And I guess just to give a little background, Kristen, you're a life coach, you're a personal coach, and as Justin mentioned, you're also a host and co-host of the Activate podcast.
Yes.
You're a certified life coach, fitness fanatic, boy mom, and we just think all those things are awesome, and that's why we're super excited to dive into some of that today.
Yes, all that. All those things. So thank you.
Awesome. Well, maybe we could talk a little bit about your podcast. It says that you guys want to encourage, people just in general to get unstuck from that less than life. And I think it's cool that you guys offer actual tangible advice, that people can use regardless of what aspect in life they want to get unstuck from. So maybe you could talk a little bit about, how that came about, how that mission statement came about, and, why you love doing that so much.
Yeah. So I host a podcast with my friend Steph. I had the idea. I had done a podcast previously with a friend, and it just it just didn't work out the way I thought it would. And then I thought, well, this just wasn't for me. I wasn't meant to be a podcaster. But as I looked around my beautiful studio and was like, no, I feel like I can do this. So I decided to do it on my own. and did a few episodes by myself. I came up with the name Activate with the K, because it was just all about taking action. And that's what I was doing by starting the podcast. Like I was done being afraid and just decided like, it might be messy action, but I'm going to take action. Steph was my 4th guest on the podcast. And I remember just taking my headphones off and thinking, that's how that is supposed to feel. Like that is what I want. And so we began to do it together. And we've just been on this mission to help women specifically just activate their lives and not stay stuck.
And we're live and we're back.
In case you thought we weren't coming back.
Here we are.
So this just in, the Heartland Media basically went down because we had so many viewers.
Went viral. Couldn't take it. Our bandwidth couldn't take it.
Love it. All right. Let's get back into this.
All right.
Yes. We have Kristen here. And we were just talking a little bit about, how Kristen's a mother and, how she lives a healthy lifestyle. And you were talking a little bit about, advice that you could give to, other mothers or parents in general who would like to continue living a healthy lifestyle, and kind of that whole balancing act, and what that's like for you.
Yeah. And I think for me, it just comes down to believing truly in my heart that it's not a selfish thing to do to take time out for myself and to take good care of myself, because it's the way that I can show up at my best for all of my people, my children, my business partners, my husband. So I think that it's just making it a priority and then, deciding, put it in your calendar every day. And it's an appointment that you have, and you don't schedule other things at that time because that is your time for yourself. So it's just taking action and deciding you're going to do it.
Yeah. And as a coach, so I have a question for you. So I've been doing coaching as well. And one thing I've noticed working with people is, and just myself, everyone, we all seem to think that the things that we deal with, that we keep private, that we're somehow unique and that other people are not all dealing with the same issues. So I guess being vulnerable publicly, and that's one thing that I've gotten better with. I know you have as well. I guess talk a little bit about what it's like to help people kind of just understand that these are normal things. We all struggle with things, and how we get through it.
Yeah, I think I'm an extremely open book, and I share all my struggles. I'm probably an oversharer, but I do believe that that's the main way I'm able to help people is when they can relate to me, something that I say resonates. They can see that even though I might be someone they look up to as someone, doing well in social media or having this podcast or whatever it might be, like I struggle with the exact same things. And I think for me, becoming a life coach was truly to figure myself out. It was less about helping other people, but learning to help myself so that then I could apply that to helping other people.
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
That's deep. Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah, that's good perspective. I've noticed that as well. The more I help other people, the more it actually helps myself.
Mm-hmm.
And it actually just keeps you accountable, right?
Yeah.
For sure. Definitely. It keeps you accountable. It's just like, I started off, I was working in a gym, and that very much keeps you accountable to, okay, I got to get that workout in. I got to show up, every day. People are watching. And I think, being a life coach, it's important to, like you're saying, be vulnerable and show the struggles, but I love to share coming out on the other side of it and how I made that happen. And I think so much of it, life coaching just taught me that the outcomes of our lives are controlled by our thoughts. But the amazing thing is that we control our thoughts. We can choose our thoughts. So that's been a huge game changer for me.
Can you speak on that? How do you, I guess, change your thoughts? What's some advice? Because I deal with that all the time. You know what I mean? Like you overthink things. I'm one of those people that literally overthinks everything, probably.
Yeah. Well, your thoughts create your feelings, and your feelings create your actions, and your actions create your results. So if you can take hold of your thoughts, and sometimes that literally means writing it out. Like, what is this thought that I have right now? It might start with a circumstance, right? Like, this is what's happening, and this is what I'm thinking about that. And that's creating this feeling for me, right? And then you act based on what that feeling is. And then you get that result. So if you can go back through that list and change the thought, the circumstance doesn't have to change. But if you can change the thought that you think about that circumstance, you can completely change the result in the end.
That's huge. The power of mindset.
Yeah. And well, taking control of the process, right?
Yeah.
Mm.
That's really what it is. Because I believe in, writing it down. When you write it down, it's so true. And I never thought of, writing the thoughts down essentially, but you hear of the food diaries and you hear of all these things where people are writing things down to hold yourself accountable.
Right.
There it is again, right? So maybe
Mm-hmm.
you transition not only the food diary, but maybe it's even those thoughts. Maybe it's even those, those times that you're having those feelings. Because there's days that, you wake up and you're like, I don't want to work out. You know what I mean? I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. I don't want to eat healthy. I don't want to do those things. But I think if, like you said, maybe writing those things down, writing a little journal entry on it, and then,
understanding more about where it's coming from or why, not just, having the actual emotion. That's an interesting way to think of it.
right. And Kristen, you kind of already spoken a little bit about this, but like, I guess what's one thing, because I mean, you're an influencer, you're a mompreneur, you're probably in front of a lot of people, but what's one thing I think, people looking from the outside that you think that they probably wouldn't, they don't know about you, just from, the bird's eye view?
I think that for me, I try really hard not to have this highlight reel, because I think that we see so much of that. And I do have a wonderful life, but I didn't always. And it took a whole bunch of work. And I just like to be vulnerable about that and be really real about my struggles. So I don't know that it's something that people don't know, but maybe, outside looking in, you wouldn't know that if you haven't dug into me at all or listened to my story or the podcast. But I do really try to stay away from that, just like, oh, everything's so wonderful. And, because I think we get so much of that on social media, and it's just this compare and despair, right? Like, oh, I'll never have that, or I'll never do that, or I'll never be like that. And then you just kind of stay stuck. And that's like the story of my whole life, is that, Justin was talking on a podcast about how he just doesn't have time for like mediocrity. Like that is not, that's not okay with him. And I think for a really long time, I believed that I was just wired to be mediocre. Like I never truly had the belief in myself that I would do big things. And my main self-limiting belief in my life has been I'll never be successful. And I've been able to just like turn that on its head. And that feels really, really, really good, because it was a long, long time. And I truly believe that if I couldn't be the best at something, what was the point of doing it? And I was never the best at anything. I never could have told, if you said, what are you good at? What is your talent? What is that? I would say nothing. Like, I truly didn't believe that. I'm very hard on myself. But I thought like, well, what's the point? Until I realized that, people need to hear exactly what I have to say, exactly how I say it. Like, everybody doesn't need to hear from the smartest person in the room, right? Or the, whatever it might be that you feel like you don't have. There are people that show up every week to listen to me say something because the way I say it resonates with them. And once I could kind of get past that and realize that truth, it became a lot easier.
Wow.
It's so interesting, right? That flip, because the chances are when you see somebody doing something at a high level, more often than not, that was something they were extremely deficient in. That was a chip on their shoulder that they hated about themselves, that they literally worked on and made it the most, the best asset they have.
Well,
That's kind of how it happened for me.
Yeah, you even said like being at that the mega success conference, like you thought for a second, like, what am I doing up here? What do I have to say to these people? And then you just got over that. Like that was just a lie you were telling yourself, right? That you weren't good enough to be there or whatever that is. And I guarantee you spoke to someone there and they heard directly from you what they didn't hear from those billionaires or, those people that are uber successful. There are people that need to hear exactly what you have to say, just like you say it.
So true. And once it gets addicting. Once you make some impact and you help somebody, that's a new rewarding feeling that if you haven't had it before, try to do that. Try to help somebody. And when you make impact on them, there is nothing more rewarding.
No, it feels so good. It really does. And just like really starting to recognize your self-limiting beliefs. Like, what is the story you're telling yourself constantly? And then asking yourself, is this true? It's really that simple. Like, is this true? Or is this a BS story I'm trying to convince myself up to keep myself safe, right? Our brains are wired to keep us safe. So we're going to stay in our comfort zone and we're not going to do anything scary because that's what our brain wants us to do. But you don't get anywhere when you just play it safe all the time.
Right.
That brings, I mean, I think you guys had actually a recent podcast where you used the word mind trash. And I thought that was really interesting because people do have a lot of, negative thoughts, limiting beliefs. And I guess that's a great way to put it. And those are things that you're working to overcome. And I thought that was interesting. And I think you kind of just elaborated a little bit on it. So
yeah, I mean, I think you guys talk all about, like, it's all about your mindset. And again, that comes back to your thoughts. What are you thinking? And a tool I use in my coaching practice is just like eavesdrop on yourself. Set a timer for, every hour of the day and just ask yourself, what am I thinking right now? Like, what are the thoughts in my brain? And write them down and see how much of your thoughts are negative. Because it's kind of mind-blowing to see how much negativity can pass through our brains in a given day, even if it's just about yourself.
Yeah, because you spend more time with yourself than anyone else.
Right.
That's right.
So you better be
That's right.
intentional about it, or it can it can spiral quickly.
Definitely. Yeah.
And I'm curious to hear not just Kristen's point of view on this, but everybody's point of view. How important do you guys think, as far as mindset goes, it's like, how important do you think the content that you actually consume is relative to that mindset? Kristen, you can go first. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, that's another thing that Justin spoke to on a podcast that I listened to, is just kind of taking an inventory of what you're consuming. If your Instagram feed makes you feel less than all day long, it's back to the highlight reel, like, that's not people's real life. That's what they're choosing to share, right? And so whatever that might be, it might be what you're watching on TV. It might be, the 5 people you spend the most time with. Like, really take inventory. And that's just one of those things where if things don't serve you, you have to let them go.
Mm-hmm.
What about you, Justin? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, auditing how things make you feel, I think, is really important.
Yeah.
Even if it's not necessarily good or bad, but how it impacts you. It's different for everyone. I know for me, like, I have gotten 100% rid of anything political out of my feeds. And if you're someone who posts a lot about politics, like, you get muted because it makes me angry. And I'd kind of like figured out that when I see things that I can't control or change and there's nothing I can do about it, it makes me angry. So I only fill my mind with information that motivates me to take care of the things that I can control.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's huge.
So I just got it out of my head and got it out of my news feed. And I'm way happier with that not in my life anymore.
Yeah.
You don't put it in front of yourself. You don't have it kind of everywhere, because that's kind of what social media can do to you. You look one place, you look the other place, it's everywhere.
Right.
And I think we forget that we can choose that,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
like, that's completely in your control.
Yeah, you can turn the notifications off so they don't come on your phone, so you don't see it, so it doesn't remind you to open it up, and then you look at it, but then you get stuck, and then 1 minute turns into 30 minutes. I think everyone has, those times where, they go through things like that, and it's nice too. You mentioned earlier taking a break from things.
Yeah.
That's another thing you can do that's beneficial. Maybe take yourself out of that, that medium for a little while. Take a break and see how you feel. Like, if you feel differently, if you have a different energy, if you feel like you're in a more positive mindset, maybe that's something that works for you. Everyone's different. So, yeah.
I think that's, I'm thinking, but it's probably for another podcast where we could talk about, like that actually, like, maybe as far as social media goes, it's so important in terms of business, in terms of, people's jobs, especially now, right?
The balance between, using it as a tool.
Well, I mean, see, that's the sort of, disagreement that I have, because you have to be, you talk about balance, but if it is your job to go out and be on social media, you have to do it every single day, because you notice, like, with eating right, with working out, it's got to be consistent.
Yeah. And
so
you don't want it to consume you, influence you. I mean, that's a really interesting topic too.
Right.
Have you done looked at the screen time thing and see how much time?
Yeah.
I spend more time on Instagram and Facebook than any other app.
Yeah.
Wow.
Right. It's a ton, but it's actually, it can be terrible or it can be beneficial.
Right.
But all I follow is great stuff. You control what you follow.
See, yeah. And two, like, sitting there and scrolling and consuming is a lot different than, like, posting something. Like, if you're putting out content, you're trying to add value, if you're telling a story in your stories, that's a little bit different than just sitting there and consuming stuff. Not that anything's wrong. We're not, telling anyone what to do, but, just things to keep in mind.
It is an important distinction, right? Because social media is a tool. It's like, am I the product or am I delivering product? And how you use the app is extremely important. So I try to keep an audit of my balance of how much I'm putting back out into the world versus am I just sitting there consuming crap.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yep. That's huge. Because I know, like, when I'm consuming content, it plays, even the music, right? You think of, and that's more so entertainment, but, like, when you're watching a podcast, when you're listening to certain things online as opposed to, just going through and consuming and just looking at something for entertainment purposes, I feel like that could also play a mental role as well, right? So I think that if you're sticking to, business, or if you're sticking to certain things, social media is great, but I also think, like Kristen said, like you have to be able to, mute those notifications and tell yourself not to look at those certain things. If you are, like you said, you got to take a gauge of yourself.
Yeah, you need to know yourself, and like Justin said, he knows the trigger for himself, so he's gonna make sure that he removes that. I think
Right.
that's important too, is identifying those things for yourself, and that's what Kristen mentioned earlier in the podcast. If you guys were listening, and finding out and listening to where are these thoughts coming from, what's the emotion tied to it, why do I feel this way, versus just a negative or a positive emotion.
And if you switch gears into food, right? I mean, I'm a foodie. I love food. So you think about, the mental aspect as far as food goes. Kristen, can you kind of speak to, I guess, your relationship with food and how that journey has come along?
Yeah. So speaking of triggers, a lot of food stuff is a trigger for me. I'm in recovery from bulimia, and it was something that I did not recognize. It was really a control thing. I was out of control of a lot of things in my life. My son had moved to live with his dad, and that was such a difficult thing for me, and something I was so out of control of. And so the way I kind of coped was controlling my body. And I didn't recognize it as bulimia or an eating disorder until I started doing some research and realized, because I wasn't purging in the normal way that you would think of purging, I was purging with exercise. And so I was completely obsessed with exercise and food. And there were nights my husband would walk me to bed at 6 p.m. because I literally didn't have an ounce of energy left in my body to move. And there were also nights where I would be down in my basement riding the Peloton at 10 p.m., like punishing myself because I hadn't hit my calories, or because I felt like I ate something I shouldn't have eaten. And so for me, I've really had to mute a lot of, when people are talking about dieting and all these things, like it's a little triggery for me, and I'm pretty far on the other side of it now. So I'm sort of like starting to let those things back in. I'm counting my macros again, which was a huge thing for me for a while. Like I couldn't even talk about macros. But I'm back to that in a much, much healthier mindset. So my relationship with food has been very interesting. It has been a journey. But thankfully I'm on the other side of that with, getting some coaching through that. And it wasn't something I was able to fix by myself, but it's something I'm able to, with everything I've learned, I'm able to now control.
Wow.
That's
huge.
That's inspiring.
Yeah, the big thing I heard there was you were not too good to get help, right? Identify, again, like we all need coaches, we all need help, and getting through that, sometimes takes some outside help. So.
Yeah, and I love that it's part of my journey, because now I get to help other people. I'm certainly not an eating disorder coach, but so many people, when I talk about that on the podcast, are reaching out to me like, oh my gosh, I had no idea, and it's just another way. Like my mess is my message, and I just get to help people, and I love that.
Wow. Yeah, that's awesome. Because I think a lot of people too, they go through similar things, or if not the same thing, but mental health is one of those things where people don't really want to talk about the things that they truly like deal with. And I think a lot of people deal with, especially their relationship with food, some sort of something around their relationship with food, or whatever it is, Yep. And so I think that a lot of people can relate to that as well.
I have a question before I forget. So Kristen, I always see you posting about collagen. So I assume you're pretty much a collagen expert. So
I was so hoping we could talk about, I know you're a First Form guy, so I'm like, I don't know if we can talk about the collagen. I would love to send you some collagen and see what you think.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about, your collagen, the brand you use, why you love it, the benefits of it. Just give us the whole thing.
Yeah. So I use Modere. It's a liquid collagen. I saw huge improvement. I used it because my hair fell out after having COVID. That's why I started. And then what really got me is that I have a back injury from 8-9 years ago, and it was crippling. Like it truly would take me 30 minutes to get fully upright in the morning.
Wow.
And it was just, something I hadn't expected would happen from taking the collagen, but it is the most freeing and wonderful thing to be kind of free of that pain. So while it's been great for hair, skin, and nails and, things like that, the joint pain, the lack of inflammation, I have a lot of arthritis in my back around the injury, and that has all completely cleared up. It's just been amazing.
Yep. That's so through some of my research, that's why I added the collagen in with doing these 75 hard 2-a-days. I was getting so sore, joints were hurting, all kinds of stuff. And I'm like, okay, what can I do? And collagen came up. So since I've added that in, it has made a big difference in that.
Yes. It truly does. And it's something I think people kind of don't know. You think collagen, you think just sort of aesthetically, things like hair, skin, and nails, like I mentioned, but this is just, it's just truly been a game changer for me. And also it's where I've been able to find success. Like I never believed in a million years I would do a network marketing, anything. I was just literally a certified hater of all of that. And it's been amazing. One, just because I was using the product and loving it and knowing I wouldn't go without it ever. And then I just started sharing it, and my self-limiting belief of I'll never be successful was completely turned around. So it's truly, truly amazing. And I know, Justin, you talked a little bit about the different types of collagen. Ours is a type 2 liquid collagen. Type 2 most mimics what we have in our body. It mimics human collagen. So your body knows exactly what to do with it. It's from chicken sternal cartilage, and it's just a top-notch product. I truly would love to send you some so that you can kind of compare it to what you're taking now and see what you think.
Love it. Yeah. Because liquid's better for absorption, right?
It is. Yes. It is better for absorption. We have 7 international patents. We have all sorts of peer-reviewed studies. So you can, I know you're all about the ingredients. It's very clean. We have 5 different ones. We have a sport collagen that contains BCAAs for recovery. We have one for immunity, which is so important. It has zinc and elderberry. I take Life, which has resveratrol. And then we have a Pure for people who don't want any extra ingredients in their collagen. What's the one I'm forgetting? Oh, and then Skin, which is, obviously people want to take it for hair, skin, and nails. And that really has extra ingredients for glowing skin, but it's top-notch stuff, truly.
And too, I've seen just a couple videos and things on your Instagram, but did they have different flavors and things like that? Because I saw one that was maybe chocolate, so I was wondering.
Oh yeah, so that's a fat blocker. Yeah, so that is a fat blocker that also contains collagen. It's a clinical strength CLA. So yes, that is one of our top selling products. People love it. It tastes like dessert. It's like a little treat. I mix that with we have a probiotic. It's actually a pre-pro and postbiotic, and it's these little beads, and I mix it with my chocolate trim, and it tastes like a Crunch bar.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
So, yeah. Kristen, can you take us through what a day's like in terms of supplements? Do you wake up and start with supplements? How does that work for you?
Yeah, I do. And I was listening to your supplement podcast, and I was like, I have a drawer full of supplements. I take lots of supplements every day, but some of them I can't remember why I take them. I read a book, and it said take this, this, and this, and then I started, and then I read another book, and it said this, this, and this, and so I take that. If you were to come here and say, well, what do you take this for? I would say I have no idea, because I read a book that it was good for me. So I need to do a little inventory of my supplements, but I definitely take. I take the multi, I take the fish oil, I take the vitamin C, I take the vitamin D, I take the vitamin K. All the different. So much. I take L-lysine, L-carnitine. I take, you name it, I probably take it. So I'm very much into all of that, but I need to get better about, I need to streamline a little, I think.
Yeah.
It's something
it's a rabbit hole.
Yeah.
It is.
I feel like, there's a supplement for every single thing. If you start, you're like, oh, well, maybe I should be taking, like you said, this and this and this.
And then you find out oh, I'm taking D, but I'm not taking this. And so I'm not absorbing the thing. Exactly. And I have to, oh my gosh, it's I can't even wrap my head around it, but I know that it's so important.
To me, that's a sign that, you're with a good company, is if they got ahead of that and they don't expect you to know. And if they give you a vitamin D supplement, it's going to have the K2 in it.
Yes, you're right. Yes.
Yeah. So important. The absorption, because it's like you want to take the supplements, but you want to absorb the actual nutrients that you think you're getting. Because if not,
exactly.
You don't want to be taking it for no reason.
Right.
Yeah, it's not that fun taking 2 giant handfuls of pills. If you're gonna do it, you want to make sure you're doing something good for your body.
Yeah.
And I love, Justin, too, that you always say, I don't care how it tastes. I just want to know that it's doing something good for me. And I feel the exact same way. Like when people are like, oh, I didn't really like how it tasted. I'm like, okay, and like,
Yeah.
but did
It's
it
almost
work?
like if it tastes good, I'm
Right.
like, is this gonna work?
Yeah.
Right.
You're like,
right.
this tastes too good to actually be real.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
Oh, you think about taking supplements. I mean, you also think about on the other end, if you're not taking supplements and you're not eating right, you're going to be taking a total different list of pills, right? When you go to the doctor, what are they going to recommend to you
on the adverse side?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
yeah.
supplementation has been something that, we've just started to also look into. I mean, we were taking, things as far as like electrolytes and things like that when you're not getting it in your diet.
Mm-hmm.
But then now, with the first form and now, listening to everybody, it's like it seems like that goes hand in hand with a healthy lifestyle.
Yeah, it's key.
Definitely. I love listening to you guys talking about, the cryotherapy and the ice baths and, things like that. There's just so many things that you can do to prevent illness and to keep your immune system strong. I have done recently, some IV vitamins before travel and things like that. And I just it's just so important to, kind of nip it in the bud, let's get ahead of it rather than let's treat it once it happens. Right.
And kind of touching on things that we already said, it's like, it's cool because you have control over it, right? It's your body and you can experiment with different things and you get to, see how you feel. And the great news is you can change it if you don't feel great,
Exactly. And people, you guys talked a lot about the cost and people get so caught up on the cost, but my goodness, how much is it going to cost you to get sick? Right.
100. Yep.
So much
more expensive than metabolic disease.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I mean, the cost of that to your life, to what that does to your children, you think taking, an hour a day away to go work out, imagine what you're going to lose, if you were to get sick. So it's just so important.
You mentioned the IV drip. That's something I haven't done yet, but I want to look into, not just because of hangovers and stuff like that, but because
well, athletic recovery.
Yeah.
There's so many different things it's good for.
Yeah, so
that's actually how I heard about the IV drip was on a trip, and we were going to a football game, and we all needed to feel better. So, but I will say, so I got an IV vitamin drip recently before traveling, and I was literally sick within 4 hours of getting off the airplane, and I was so upset. But what I realized is that I keep telling myself I'm going to get sick because I'm going on an airplane. And then what I get from that is sick from going on an airplane. So we just flew back Monday from Vegas, and I was like, I'm not going to get sick this time because I don't think I'm going to get sick this time. And truly, it's so much about your mindset. I was almost like manifesting getting sick every time I got on a plane. So, but I loved the idea of just doing things that are good for me. I have no idea if it worked or didn't. I mean, I got sick, but I felt really good about getting that vitamin drip.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah.
It's like you'll never know, but how much sicker would you have been without it?
This is true. You're exactly right. Mm-hmm.
Especially with things that you can't get, in your normal diet or things like that, like either doing a vitamin drip or supplementing, something like that.
Yep.
It's super interesting. I love it. I'm literally, like Justin said, just starting to. We haven't taken the full dive yet into the rabbit hole. I'm just kind of like dipping the toe. But I'm pretty sure it's gonna suck you right in.
It does. Be careful.
Snowball rolling down the hill.
Right.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You get results, then you're hooked.
Yeah. Then you get it.
You're right. Then you don't want to stop.
Right.
That's all it takes is seeing a little bit of improvement, and you're like, oh yeah, I'm gonna keep doing that.
And Kristen, so you mentioned, traveling to Vegas, and, just looking at your Instagram, it looks like you're an avid traveler. What are some places that you have gone to, and why do you travel? Like, what do you get out of the traveling?
So I wish I could say I've been to a lot of cool places. My husband is the avid traveler. He's been all over the world. He's a hunter, and so he travels all over everywhere. I travel back and forth to home a lot, and we try to get on some trips. It's been a little more difficult the last couple of years. So we're just kind of getting back into going places. But the reason we travel is because when we're at home, it is like kids, work, repeat, right? And so for us to keep our marriage healthy and strong, we need to take those times to get away.
So on that topic,
Totally see that.
Kristen and her husband got 2 freezers on day 1 from Heartland. One for the hunting and one for the Heartland food.
Nice.
That's right. They still say, how full is your freezer? I'm like, Well, the one is pretty full, but the other one we got room. In fact, it's time to reorder, so I'm gonna get that free bacon. I'm looking forward to that. But yes, we did. You're like 2, and that's Justin. We met. You came to my house and made us dinner, and I remember that was kind of the beginning of the end for me with my eating, because I remember I was only eating like chicken and vegetables at that point, and I think I ordered something like 400 chicken breasts, and you were like, okay, 400. Okay, we can do that. And so it was like, it was interesting. But yes, we've been so happy. Oh my goodness. I love being able to just go to the basement. My family is obsessed with the fillets, so I'm constantly making the fillets. That's always what they ask for. If I let them choose what's for dinner, it's fillets. And I'm eating the chicken all the time, and I'm out of chicken, and I got some chicken from Costco. Oh my gosh. Like, it's huge. Like, why is it this big? And it's organic, and my husband's like, it's going to be $100 for me to get you 4 packages of organic chicken. Do you really need it organic? I'm like, absolutely I do. And so he brought it home. I can hardly eat it because it's something ain't right. I have to say.
It's that Cobb Vantress genetic engineering.
The texture too.
It was a good reminder of why we do what we do with Heartland. So
yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. That's awesome.
And then I guess hunting. Are you guys do you partake in eating anything that your husband is hunting for, or actually?
Okay, so that's a contention point that is very difficult for me to wrap my mind around. Like, I need it to come from somewhere and not the back of the truck. I have a hard time with that. I'm happy to make it for my family, and they enjoy it very much, but I stick to my 400 chicken breasts from Heartland, and I'm very happy with that. But yeah, I have a freezer full of elk. And I actually did try that, and that was amazing. But yeah, the problem is I really never know what I'm putting out of the freezer, and I'm not a big fan of mystery meat.
Right.
Agreed.
So you're coming up on your 5-year anniversary with Heartland. I just pulled it up right here.
Wow.
I wondered. I thought I knew it was at least 4, but yeah, it's been a good long run, and have never been disappointed.
Guess how many chicken breasts were on that first order?
How many?
More than 400?
600.
No wonder you were like looking at me like a crazy person. That's hilarious.
It's like, you might eat this, or I just won't see you for about a year and a half. We'll see.
No, I ate it, and you saw me again.
Yep, impressive.
That's awesome.
Oh,
And so with all those chicken breasts, are you meal prepping, or
Yeah, how
do you cook them as is?
So I cook the chicken ahead of time. That I do, because if I don't have the meat prepared, then I find myself like that part takes too long. So if I don't have the meat prepared, then I end up eating something and not getting in my protein. So I always make, like 6, I'd say, at a time. And then I have that gets me through, 3 days or so. And then I make some more. So I'm always meal prepping the meat, but I'm not good at meal prepping the rest.
That's interesting. I mean, I think, like you said, it's the most important aspect of it.
Yeah.
If we did that, Shannon would not have a job, because I usually grill the meat and then she does everything else.
The other part is that I'm fortunate enough to be home all day, so I have time. I can get into my kitchen and I can make my food. I'm not in an office all day long where, it's really important to have everything prepped. So I'm able to stay on track, even though I'm not great at prepping.
That's awesome.
And I guess what's one, piece of advice, because we could be here all day in terms of advice for health and wellness, but I guess what's one piece of advice I think that you think is most important as far as your health coaching and just coaching life in general?
Well, I think for sure just getting your mind right is the biggest thing as far as overall wellness. Like, it's all in your head, and you can really do harm to yourself if you can't get your thoughts under control. But as far as physical health, just finding your thing. Like Justin was saying, he's rotating between 3 different gyms right now. And I've tried everything. Like, I've been to boot camps, and I've been to, I've been to Orange Theory. I've done yoga. I've tried Pilates. I've done all the things. And once you find your thing, and it doesn't even have to be just one thing, but once you find what you love, it really becomes easy to just show up for yourself every day.
That's great.
So important.
And I think one of the things that we say on this podcast a lot, because when we had, I forget the guy's name now, but he was saying the same thing. You got to make your lifestyle that's around you, you got to make it easier to do those certain things. So if you know you're going to work out, get the workout out in the the morning, because you have to do it kind of deal. You got to set
yourself up for success.
Exactly.
And don't allow the people around you too, because like my husband doesn't work out, and it would be very easy for me to just be like, oh, okay, maybe I won't, but I know that I show up as such a better person when I work out, and it doesn't matter what anybody around me is doing. I know what makes me feel the best, and I do that. Like I don't skimp on, taking good care of me just because somebody else around me isn't. So
yeah, that's huge.
Zero compromise.
Yeah, zero compromise. Yeah.
It's easier said than done, but it's so important.
Yes, but I do believe rest days are important. So when you're not on 75 hard, you should definitely be taking rest days, because that was something I had to learn the hard way. Like I was not resting. I went 594 days in a row without missing a workout. And then I got COVID, and that literally, it was almost like God's like, well, if you're not going to sit down, I'm going to sit you down, because I just had no choice at that point. And I was like, come on, God, couldn't you have at least let me hit 600? Like at this point, like 594 is a terrible place to stop. But it was such a blessing, because then I learned, then it wasn't such a pressure, because it's like, at that point, you're not just going to be like, well, I think tomorrow I'll rest, right? You're going to try to keep that going as long as you can. And so I've really learned the importance of, fueling my body with good food and allowing myself to rest.
It's so important. We talk about the recovery.
Rest and recovery.
Yeah.
And as human beings, we're just so, especially if you have the personality to just go, and like you said, dive into something, I think we miss the opportunity for recovery. And when you do that, it could actually, it plays a bad part. We talk about sleep. You talk about, taking collagen, taking supplements. All those things are so important. Drinking water, right? Like Justin's goal right now is drinking 2 gallons before the day's even over, right?
1 gallon.
1 gallon. Oh, okay.
2 gallons.
I was about to say, it seemed
That's a lot.
He'd be floating away.
How many? Oh my gosh.
It's hard. If you don't start early, like, you're going to have a rough night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rough night. Yes, absolutely.
Awesome.
Well, this has been super amazing.
We could talk for hours.
We could keep going, but before we start to wrap up, I just want to let everyone know that if you'd like to get connected with Kristen, you can check her website out. It's www.kristinballard.com. If you want to check her out on Instagram or Facebook, it's Kristen Lee Ballard. So definitely, if you have any questions, and you can check them out on Spotify. They have the Activate podcast, so definitely do so as well. And Kristen, we just want to tell you, thank you so much for taking, your time out of your day to meet with us and to talk with us. And we think that, everyone who's listening and who will listen is, going to get a ton of value out of your advice and kind of listening to your story. So we just appreciate you, and we thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate you as well. Thank you so much.
Definitely. And I guess, Justin, if there's anything else you kind of want to touch on, and with that, I think you can wrap us up.
I think you guys nailed it. So we'll be back again next week, 9:30 a.m. Thursday. And as always, stay healthy with Heartland.